Hey everybody, real quick before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that I'm doing a giveaway here on this podcast. So one of you can win a $50 Amazon gift card. What do you have to do to enter this giveaway? All you have to do is to leave me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. And here's how you can do it. So open your phone, open the podcast app, go to my show, and there is a purple clickable link. You click on that, then scroll all the way down until you see ratings and reviews. And leave me a 5-star rating, leave me a review, and one of you will win that $50 Amazon gift card. I will announce the winner on the last episode in October. So good luck, and here is the show. Hey everybody, this is Kirsten here. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is a new episode of the Balanced Vibes podcast. Today's episode is going to be purely 100% about nutrition. So no other talk about lifting or any of the other things that I talk about here. This is going to be all nutrition, and this is going to be it's going to be helpful for those people who are just getting started with the macros, just starting to make the first adjustments to their diet, and they feel maybe overwhelmed, and they don't know how I'm going to get this protein. What else do I have to look at? How to make these things better? So this episode is going to be very, very practical, and I'm going to address 3 problems that I see most commonly people who are new to macros are running into. And it's very, very important that we fix these 3 problems, because otherwise we're not going to get the result that we want to get. So, of course, most people want to lose body fat and also want to lose weight, although that fat loss and weight loss aren't always the same thing. But let's say they want to lose body fat and they want to put on muscle because they have learned about the importance of muscle. So there are some adjustments that we have to make. And a lot of times these adjustments can feel like a lot of work and hard to do. And this is what I'm hoping to kind of solve for you in this episode. So what are then the 3 things that I see that are most problematic for people who are just new to tracking? They maybe have tracked their calories for a couple months or a couple of weeks even, and they're realizing that they're either like going way over their calories, and they're not getting the right amount of protein, and things are just, the adjustments are really difficult to make. So the first thing I would say a lot of people struggle with, but it is very, very important to get right, is to increase your protein. This is really the number 1 step that everybody has to do, because most people are under eating protein. Protein is not something that is so readily available in every food, such as, fats and carbs tend to be. And protein is harder to come by. You have to go and look for it, right? You can easily grab like an apple on the counter, or you could easily grab, something packaged, more like processed foods, or you can grab like a couple of slices of like cheese or something like that people tend to go to, or nuts, let's say. But these foods are low in protein. Okay, cheese has a little bit of protein, but not very low in protein, mostly fat, and then fruits, mostly carbs. All these foods are fine, but where do we find that protein? And now when somebody learns that, okay, I really have to eat, let's say, at least 100 grams of protein per day as my first goal, it can seem like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? This is just so much, and I cannot even imagine this. And especially when they have done a little bit of tracking and they see that they're now only getting 50 grams, they might be wondering, how am I going to get 100 grams of protein? This is really hard to do. So how I wanted to help you to solve this is to first tell you that get a high amount of protein already with breakfast. And this is where I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some protein-rich food ideas that you can already have with your breakfast. And when you have, let's say, at least 30 grams of protein with your breakfast, then the rest of the day is going to be already a lot easier for you. So of course, you have to keep eating this way, or also for lunch and dinner. But lunch and dinners are a little bit easier in that, typically we tend to eat more meat. We tend to have like chicken or fish or beef or something for lunch and for dinner. So if you eat like 5 ounces of chicken or beef, you already get a pretty good amount of protein, let's say 35 grams or so. And then you just add a little bit to it and you already have 40, 45 grams, but breakfast can sometimes be harder. So this is where I want to give you some ideas for your breakfast and how to get at least 30 grams of protein with your breakfast. So I have some options for you here. So the first one would be to have a couple of eggs, and this is where a lot of people stop. They're like, okay, I had 2 eggs and I think that was enough protein. No, 2 eggs is only about 14 grams of protein, but we're talking about getting about 30 grams of protein with breakfast. So what can you add to those 2 eggs? So you could add 100 grams of egg whites, right? And you can add 3 slices of turkey, for example, right? Put it in a toast or however you want to do it. And this breakfast, 2 eggs, 100 grams of egg whites, and 3 slices of turkey will give you about 30 to 35 grams of protein, depending on what kind of turkey you used, how much protein it has. So not too much, right? It's not too hard to do. 2 eggs, 100 grams of egg whites, make it scrambled, and it's going to be perfect, high in protein, plus add those 3 slices of turkey. The next option would be to have 1 egg and 100 grams of egg whites, and then you can add a chicken sausage to it. Let's say it's a leaner chicken sausage, not super high in fat, and that's a perfect breakfast. Again, you can make a scramble, you can add the chicken. Of course, you can always add vegetables to this, but right now we're talking about protein, so this will also give you about 30 grams of protein. The next option that you can use for breakfast, and something that I really like, is to just eat the previous day's leftovers, right? So let's say that you have 4 ounces of leftover chicken or steak or fish, whatever you had last night. That alone will give you 30 grams of protein, right? And when you add 2 eggs to it, that's going to be 40 plus grams of protein, more like 45 grams of protein. So see, it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go buy new fancy whatever. So you can just eat the day before's leftovers. And that's why I always say that it's important that you make a lot of food at once, so you do have leftovers for the next morning. The next thing you could have for breakfast is, again, 2 eggs. You can have a slice of toast. So toast also, it varies. Some of them have high protein content than others. But for example, Dave's Killer Bread, I think it has 5 grams of protein. So if you have a couple of hard-boiled eggs, 1 slice of toast, and 4 slices of turkey or pastrami or ham or something like that, again, you get 35 grams of protein with that already. You could also have a cup of Greek yogurt, which typically is 16 to 20 grams of protein. And if you add to it 1 scoop of protein powder, that's going to add another 20 grams to it. So this is a really high protein breakfast. You can, of course, put berries on it. You can put honey on it, which are carbohydrates, but I'm talking about protein specifically right now. So Greek yogurt alone is already high in protein, but if you want to make it even higher, you can add a little bit of protein powder, and it can make the Greek yogurt really thick. So you may want to add like a splash of water or milk or something to make the texture a little bit better. You could also have, again, a slice of toast and 4 ounces of smoked salmon, for example. It's really nice, which is about 30 grams of protein. And if you want to, you can make a smoothie, also protein smoothie. So put a scoop of your favorite protein powder and add some milk to it, and you will also get 30 grams of protein with it. So these are just a couple of examples of how you could get your protein in for your breakfast. And like I said, for lunch and dinner, it tends to be a little bit easier, but you still have to look. You still have to make sure that you get your 4 or 5 ounces of like really good protein source, meat, beef, chicken, fish, whatever it is. And then everything goes around that, right? So protein should really be the foundation. So this is the center of your plate. This is what you decide first. And once you got this one down, then you put the other stuff around it, right? But if you eat the protein first, you make sure that you get it in, you're way more likely to actually hit that protein target. And of course, I always recommend that you plan the days ahead so that you know that you have the stuff ready in the fridge, you have the stuff ready in the freezer that you can take from there and cook up. For example, what do I have right now? Yesterday, I took out some pork. What is that called? Pulled pork. I had some of that in the freezer, so I knew, okay, this is gonna be my lunch. And I also took out a couple of days ago some flank steak, which I was supposed to marinate, but I forgot. But I will do it today. But it's already out. It's thawed, so now it's just marinated for about an hour. It's ready to be grilled. So being prepared really is the key. And also look for easier protein options. So for example, I get ButcherBox salmon burgers, which are, I believe, about 20 grams of protein per burger. It's so fast. You can take it from a freezer and put it in the oven, and it's ready in less than 20 minutes. You can also get some chicken burgers. Costco has some pretty decent options. And, just find little shortcuts. Maybe salmon burger is not as ideal as salmon fillet, but hey, life gets busy. It's good to have these frozen options ready in the freezer that you can just cook up really fast. Okay, so protein was the first thing that people are struggling with and are finding it's difficult to get used to eating more protein. How do I even get this? So I hope that this part helped you with that. And definitely your first goal should be at least 100 grams of protein, but probably more. Because if you think about your goal weight, let's say it's like 140, 150, 160, whatever it is for you, eventually you want to eat about as much protein as your goal weight is. So if your goal is 160 pounds, then you should be eating close to 160 grams of protein per day. But start with 100. Start with that, especially if you've been way too low previously. Then adding protein more gradually might be a better idea, because if you jump too fast, if you go from 50 to 150, then you may run into some digestive issues as well and not feel so great. So I hope that this part gave you some ideas and helped you understand how to increase your protein. All right, so the next thing that people find difficult is increasing their fiber intake. And fiber is really important. So why do we need fiber? Well, fiber, of course, is important for blood sugar balance, and that determines so many things about your health, including what your metabolism does, how your body composition looks like. So you want to make sure that your blood sugar is relatively stable. And also, this is what fiber is great for. And fiber also helps us to feel full, feel more satiated. Fibrous foods like vegetables and fruits, they also have high water content. So they're hydrating and they make us feel fuller. So my goal is for everybody to eat at least 25 grams of fiber. And what I see a lot is like between 10 and 15 grams fiber. This is what people actually get, but we have to increase that. And how you increase that is, of course, eating more fruits and vegetables. Now, the king of the fiber is probably berries, because you get so much fiber from berries. Even just 1 cup of raspberries or blackberries will give you about 7 or 8 grams of fiber, which is about a third of your daily requirement. So you need still on top of that too. So I really recommend that you prepare your food. That includes your vegetables, and you have to be ready. You have to be ready. You cannot hope that somehow during the day I'm going to get the right amount of fiber. No, you're probably not going to get the right amount of fiber if you haven't done some preparation work. So I'm going to tell you some of my favorite ways to prepare my vegetables, and something that you can start doing as well if you're not doing it yet. And I'm going to tell you the different cooking methods that I use. I use my Instant Pot a lot, and sometimes I roast things in the oven as well. But Instant Pot is really my favorite because it's so hands off. You literally put the vegetable in there and then you walk away and it does the job. So I use my Instant Pot at least 2-3 times a week, every single week. And I've had this pot for so many years. It's absolutely fantastic. So the first thing that I like to make an Instant Pot, and how I make sure that my fiber is higher, is that I like to put some butternut squash or capucha squash or other hard squash in there. So now how long you cook it, it depends on the size and type of the squash. So really hard squash like capucha will take a little bit longer, but generally speaking, about 8 to 10 minutes for a half of a squash. So you put the trivet in there, you put the squash on it, and then you set the timer for 8 to 10 minutes, and it just cooks there. Don't forget to put a little bit of water inside of the Instant Pot too, otherwise it will not start. The other thing that I like to make in my Instant Pot is green beans. And I don't know if you knew it or not, but with Instant Pot, you can set the timer for 0 minutes. Yes, you can actually do it with Instant Pot. And you might be thinking, okay, how do the beans cook then if it's 0 minutes? Well, the pressure will still build up in the pot, and then it literally stops. So you have to make sure that you do the quick release right after you hear the beep, so that the beans don't overcook. But yes, you can do 0 minutes, and this is all I recommend for green beans because they are so tender that they overcook very, very fast. Another thing that I like to make in my Instant Pot is Brussels sprouts or broccoli florets, and for those I use 1 to 2 minutes. If the smaller vegetables, then 1 minute, larger 2 minutes. So I put them in the Instant Pot, I let them cook for 1 to 2 minutes, and when I hear the beep, time is up, then I do a quick release because otherwise they will continue to cook in the pot and you will end up with super soggy vegetables. And then one more thing that I like to make in the Instant Pot is red or golden beets. So depending on the size, they can take about 10 to 15 minutes to cook. If they're very small, then less, but beets are relatively hard, so the cooking time is longer. And I always peel them after I have cooked them. It's a lot easier like that. Actually, just remembered that I also make all my potatoes in the Instant Pot too. The cooking time is less than red or golden beets, but I would say it's about 6 to 8 minutes, depending on the size of the potatoes. Again, don't forget to put a little bit of water inside your Instant Pot. And all these Instant Pot methods are super simple. So if you do all these things, if you make some beets, some Brussels sprouts, let's say that's all you do, you have so much fiber ready to go for the next couple of days. Then you can use a microwave for spaghetti squash, super simple. So how do you do it? You can cut spaghetti squash in half. I like to do lengthwise and remove the seeds with a fork, and then bake for about 7 minutes per side. So you can put the squash on the plate, put a little bit of water on the plate, then the squash on it, and then 7 minutes per side. And when you take it out, you can see if it's cooked enough or if you need more time, because sometimes bigger spaghetti squash does need more time. You can also microwave a whole sweet potato. Depending on the size, it can take 3 to 7 minutes. But again, super convenient, super easy. In the oven, I like to make roasted baby peppers. This is what I discovered a couple of months ago, and I really love it. So I like how sweet they really get in the oven. So I set my oven for 400 degrees Fahrenheit and roast the vegetables, the baby peppers, for about 20 minutes or until they're soft. I actually don't even use any cooking oil on it. You can if you want to, but I don't need it. It's fine without. And sometimes also make roasted sliced zucchini. So again, about 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. And I like to season it, with whatever you like to season them with. I like to use salt, pepper, and garlic, or sometimes I use this Hawaiian seasoning that I have. It's really, really simple. And it's also relatively hands-off. Yes, you will have to slice your vegetables. That's true, of course. But then you put them in the oven and take them out. And if you make a big batch, then you have it for several days. So use these methods. And then lastly, of course, you can eat your vegetables fresh as well. So one recommendation that I have here is that you cut up any fresh veggies that you buy, because that way you actually eat it. Because sometimes I hear people say that, yeah, I bought them, but they went bad because I didn't eat them. Like, well, that was useful. Buying them and let them go bad. Don't let them go bad. So if you want to eat them fresh, then peel them, cut them up so that you know that you're much more likely to eat them when they are cut up already. You can also buy some pre-cut veggies if you want to take a really good shortcut there. So that's also an option. And that's how, when you also add, a couple of fruits or one fruit a day or a couple of piece of fruit a day, and then you eat all these vegetables, you will hit that 25 grams of fiber. You absolutely will. You just have to put in the work, you have to prepare. This is important. I've said it many times and I say it again. When it comes to protein and when it comes to fiber, you cannot randomly find your way to your target. You cannot be like stumbling, like, oh, look at that. Today I hit 140 grams of protein and I got my 30 grams of fiber. Isn't that awesome? It does not happen like this. You have to prepare. You likely have to change your habits. You likely have to start cooking more. You have to take a day in a week where you make your food prep. Sometimes 2 days a week when you make your food prep. So there is some work involved. And it's important to understand, because if we have a goal, a different body composition, we have to put in the work. And meal prep is part of it. Keeping your protein high is part of it. And keeping your fiber high is also a part of it. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about, which is super difficult for a lot of people, is to reduce their fat intake. Now, I will say that not everybody needs to reduce their fat intake. Some people are eating low fat already, and for them, it's the opposite. They have to increase it a little bit because their macros are out of balance. But I will say that it's high fat is problematic for more people than not. And the reason is that fat is really high in calories. So when you compare it with protein and carbohydrates, fats have twice as many calories per gram than carbs and protein. So 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories. 1 gram of protein has 4 calories, right? 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. So it's It's twice plus what the other macros have. So now if you're eating super high fat and you don't even recognize it, then this is something that's going to hold you back from getting your results. This is what constantly puts you over your daily calories and keeps your diet like a very high calorie diet. That's why you are not losing the body fat that you want to lose. And so a lot of times people are used to just like very generously, be very generous with the cooking oils and coffee creamers, all that. And they don't even see that this could be too much. And this could be the reason why they're not getting their results. So I'm going to give you some practical tips here as well, how to start reducing your fat if you need to, right? If you see that way too many calories come from fats, then we have to look at that. So the first thing would be to use a little bit less cooking oils. For example, when you look at the recipe and the recipe says that, okay, there's ground beef there, and cook your ground beef in like 2 tablespoons of oil. You don't need to do that. Ground beef is already high fat. And if you add 2 tablespoons of oil, it's absolutely unnecessary. It's going to pump your fat intake high, and you don't need that. That's going to give you so many extra calories. So if you cook, let's say, ground beef, you actually don't need oil there at all, right? Because the beef already has plenty of fat. Now, of course, you do need some oil if you want to like fry some eggs or cook something else. Yes, you do need some, but see if you can reduce that. Maybe the recipe says that you need 2 tablespoons of oil for this. Can you just put half there, right? Can you just get in half a tablespoon of oil? The other thing, same for like butter or anything that you use for cooking. So people can say, yeah, but it's it's not as flavorful, not as tasty if I reduce the butter or oil. But if we have a goal, we may have to sacrifice that a little bit and get used to like just using a bit less and actually understand that it doesn't make that big of a difference in the taste either. Now, the second thing when it comes to fat is that a lot of people drink like 3-4 cups of coffee a day. And every time they drop like a very significant pour of creamer in there. And if you have 3 cups of coffee with, air quotes, a splash of cream, it will absolutely add up and you end up way too high in fat, which also means way too high in calories total. The next thing is butters and nut butters. So a lot of people put butter on their toast. Totally fine. Of course you can do this. But do you have to use a whole tablespoon? Can you use a little bit less? Or if you eat like a banana with a little bit of nut butter, do you have to use 2 tablespoons of nut butter? Would you be okay with just 1? To start looking at your behaviors and how much fat you actually use. Now, the next point is a big one and a little longer one. So we have to look at our intake of fatty meats. Now, I want to put a big disclaimer here. It is important to get fat from animal sources, absolutely. I am a big proponent of red meat too for its health benefits. It's great. It's highly nutritious, very high in minerals and vitamins. And you need that animal fat. You absolutely do need that animal fat for your body to do well. So I don't want you to be thinking, all I got to eat is just like plain chicken breast and plain jerky or plain tilapia. Honestly, I think it's just gross to eat only these things. So add some red meat too and add some animal fat there too. It is absolutely fine. But if your fat intake is too high and you often go over your fat target and your calories end up being super high from it, then you just have to reduce. And I recommend that if you have, let's say, a fattier protein for lunch, then you just cut back a little bit on your dinner or choose like a leaner protein for dinner. So let me give you some examples. So fattier proteins could be like chicken thighs, chicken with skin on, strip steak, skirt steak, ribs, obviously, ribeye, higher fat ground beef, bacon, pork belly. And when we talk about fish, the fattier fish are salmon, tuna, mackerel, sardines, anchovies, and so on. So now, if we had one of these, let's say for lunch, we can have a little bit less fatty cuts or fatty meat for dinner. So that could be, for example, like just chicken breast or turkey breast, flank steak, sirloin tip, the leaner ground beef, pork loin, and tenderloin. So these are the meat sources, and then fish and seafood. The leaner stuff is tilapia, cod, flounder, shrimp, and scallops. I've just recently found scallops myself, and I think they're really, really great. Like you get so much protein for very, very low fat. So make the adjustment. If you had one fattier meal for lunch, then have like a less fatty protein option for dinner. And this is how you balance things out. So you may have to really watch that, how much fat you get from those super high fat meats. Now, two other recommendations I have if your fat tends to be high is to reduce the consumption of those little snack foods that people often reach for, like salami or nuts or cheese, because when you look at like a little small piece of cheese, most of them are really high in fat. And also like condiments and salad dressings, the mayonnaise, dressings, dips, they also tend to have really high fat content. And again, there, see if you can find a lighter option, if you can make a lighter option maybe, or if you can just reduce the amount that you are eating, because you don't have to put 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise on your whatever you're eating. Maybe you can put just one, maybe you can just put some, like half, maybe you can replace it with something that's a little bit less, lower in fat. So these are the 3 things that I see most often people struggle with: increasing protein, increasing their fiber, and reducing their fats. And I hope that these couple of tips that I shared with you today will help you to get these things a little bit more balanced. Again, I want to say that, especially when it comes to fat, we need fat. Please don't do what I did years ago, like eating 0 fat and wondering where my periods are and why is my brain so foggy. Don't do that. This is just really stupid. Don't avoid animal proteins either. They are really, really good source of nutrition, really high nutrition. But we just have to look at, if we're going overboard with things, then how can we cut back to balance things out? Because eating too much fat is not good for you either. You want to have a normal, healthy amount of fat. And meal prep, like I emphasized before too, especially for protein and for your vegetables, you have to be prepared. You have to do a little bit of work if you want to be successful at it. And those who get their protein to the right place, those who eat high fiber and are able to have a normal amount of fat, just like noticing where they're going over and getting things back to balance, they will get great results. So this is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and there's still some time to enter the $50 Amazon gift card giveaway. All you have to do is leave me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and I will announce the winner on the last episode that I do in the month of October. Until then, take care.